Well, the double bat is finally ready. You want to play some ping pong, Walt? Well, what are you doing on the floor? Walt, get up, man. Come on. Oh, my God. Walt, wake up.
Oh, would you shut up?
Sorry. Jesus Christ. It looks like you were really dead.
Well, just like Jesus Christ, I came right back again, didn't I?
What were you doing on the floor, and why are you so pale?
Don't worry about it, okay?
No, come on. You really freaked me out just now. What were you doing down there?
Look, I've been keeping it quiet, but I've been cast in House of the Dragon.
No way. That's amazing. What are you going to have to, like move to the UK or the US or something? Where do they even film that? How much are you getting paid?
It's only a couple of weeks of shooting, so I should be able to stay in Melbourne, but I'll be away at the end of next month.
And who are you playing?
Look, it's a huge opportunity for me to meet a bunch of people in the industry.
Who are you playing?
You just never know where this could land me in a year or two.
Walt,
or
who are you playing?
I'm a corpse.
Ah.
With lines.
Oh, really? Like, what do you say?
Ugh. Would you shut up?
Jeez, there's no need to be rude about it. I was just asking you a question.
No, that's my line, James. Would you shut up?
Okay, I'll leave you alone.
No, James, I'm saying, would you shut up? That's my...
I did not say anything.
Did you say you made a double bat? Is that like Darth Maul or more
Look,
like...
Darth Maul doesn't play ping pong, Walt, nor a corpse on House of Dragon.
Look, if the job came Darth Maul's way and there was like a 70% chance he would definitely meet Darth Vader, maybe he would...
maybe. I'm now like thinking of like if the double bat could actually work in ping pong. Like I'm actually thinking of like.
I mean, you have so much more surface area, right? That's got to count for something.
Most like when you see like the Olympic players play ping pong, they always hold the back to front. So surely a bat on the other side would help, right? Like surely.
The logic is flawless. Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast where the cheese stands alone.
And rightfully so.
I am your host, Walt.
Hello, Commander players. And I'm going on an adventure, James. That would have been so much better with the Lord of the Rings set a while ago, but like
we need a tally of the number of Lord of the Rings references we've had over the
I feel like
years.
I mean, look, our top references are Star Wars, obviously, Lord of the Rings, Disney Pixar is one that we reference quite a lot. Like any Buzz Lightyear quote is something we do.
We were both so cool in high school.
We had so many friends.
Not believe. Low key, I think we both were in the same camp in high school of being uber nerds who actually like maintained a status of being not like seen as hyper nerds because of what else we were into. Because you drummed,
so
you
was
were in a
bands,
band, and I skateboarded. So we both managed to be like,
we did cool things.
No,
with
guys,
like...
I'm cool. I skateboard, dude. Yeah. I just also go
was
home
I
and
American back in high school.
I don't know.
You gave me a really,
that was me.
Strong. Oh,
maybe I was American in high school. I skateboarded.
Dude.
I was a skateboarder like Tony Hawk.
We were basically the in-betweeners, is what we were.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Not as horrifically. Just cursed is what I'm going to refer to them as.
Cursed is good.
We have something before the transmission this week.
Yes, we do. We have our own Discord server.
Our very own space for us and all of you lovely listeners. And better than that, it's the exact same place that it already was.
Exactly right. So if you ever joined the server in the past, we used to shout it out. It went under a different name, obviously. You are in this new server now. You are in the same place that you were before, but it's been completely rebuilt from the ground up by the incredible Theo. We have to shout them out again. He did so much amazing work on this to put it all together for us because we are Discord boomers.
I felt like, so for like full transparency, I asked Theo, can you help me do this?
Yeah.
And we have desks next to each other at
Yes.
home. And they were kind of like leaning over my shoulder and saying, oh, you can do this, and this. And then they were just like, I'm just going to, let me just pull it up on my computer and I will start doing it. So we did it together, but like really, yeah, all credit to Theo. The way that it looks and feels now, all down to them. But like, yeah, this is our space now.
Yeah, we sat down and we planned, like we were like, okay, like this is what we want the server to be about. Like we have channels for the podcast, for Thrifty Thursdays, that was going to be a given, but we were like, okay, some of these channels we didn't really need anymore. Like we cut a bunch of the ones that people weren't using. We condensed down, we added a couple of new ones. There's like fun new roles you can do.
Just purely cosmetics. You can align yourself with the guilds within our server, so then you can start like clan wars, basically, if you'd like to. Go for your life.
I so welcome that in the Discord server.
Yeah, one of the first posts I sent when the server went live was who the hell would align themselves with Selesnya, because Walt just added the role to him. And I was like, what nerd.
Rude.
But yeah, this server is like genuinely like a monumental part of now the Get Commanded universe.
Yep.
As Get Commanded has grown over the years and we've gotten bigger, so too has the community that we've reached. Like that server that was originally the Get Commanded server, you know, that was just a very tight-knit group of players. And because Get Commanded started, Get Commanded has grown that server to a thing that because it was built for a small community of people. And now there's like, you know, hundreds of people in there that like all want to talk about our episodes or our gameplay, but also just find other like-minded Commander players to talk about decks, spoilers.
Get pods together. There's still spell table. The spell table bot is in the server, so you can like go !game or
/LFG. And
yeah, that's what it is.
Make you
it puts you in the queue, and then once there's 4 people there, it makes you a spell table game and everything.
So cool. Sends you the link in a DM.
Yeah.
So handy.
There's lots of really great bots and stuff in the server. You can do like the card name in double square brackets, and then it'll scryfall the card for you. We're so stoked with it. We have been hanging out in it non-stop since it went live.
Yeah.
Even
Community in there is already really pumped about it. It's great.
If you're already in there, or if you're new to it, whatever, just go to the server.
Checked it in a while.
Yes, go to the server. It all looks brand new, and there's some really cool stuff in there. So highly recommend. It's in the show notes, and we'd love to see you in there.
Can't wait to see you there.
Yeah. But we do have an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy, from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
All decks must die, but some can live on if they are reincarnated.
Okay, this confirms to me that the Space Commanders have black in their color identity.
Because
that was incredibly morbid.
Death, it's got to die.
And it's got to come back.
Yes,
it's reused.
That's true. Also
That's very
black. Yes, definitely. So I think we're doing Farewell Sweet Deck again.
This
is the vibe I'm getting.
Is such a throwback. This was episode 9.
Episode 9. It's been like actual years. It feels like just the other day. But yeah, they want us to. I mean, it's been long enough that I think it's time to talk about it again.
I was basically back when we recorded that. I was sat on like the corner of your bed, effectively.
When we all I used to live in the same. Like my bed was in the same room as my desk, as the mics and everything. And so, we literally would like cram in there.
It was very tight.
Around the mirror. We've got a cute video from episode 10, I think, to look back on at some point. But yes, we kind of came up with a framework in that episode that I think will be helpful again here in terms of decks dying.
Yeah, well, we found out there was like 3 key pillars or like reasons, 3 key reasons why you would disassemble a deck, i.e. a deck dying.
Yeah.
RIP deck.
So to remind you that the 3 reasons that we thought decks were dying, and we observed that our decks were dying for these reasons as well, was if the deck was the same every time you played it.
Yep.
If the deck either popped off or did nothing, and I would sort of now call this, it's very similar to another episode we've done, glass cannon kinds of decks. You know, if the
boom or bust.
Yeah, if the glass cannon's working, it's firing amazing, and then it shatters because it's glass.
Yep.
And then the third reason was if the deck just doesn't suit your play style.
Yeah.
So I think we should look at our decks that we've disassembled, maybe like recently, because there's a lot of decks we've disassembled since episode 9, of course.
Yeah, well, since that episode, it's like, God, at least like 7 or 8 each.
Yeah. A lot of the decks that we had at that time no longer exist. So we'll look at the decks that we disassembled over the last year or so through that lens of like, hey, these are the reasons we probably disassembled them. But also, I want to point out the Space Commanders said that the decks could live on if they're reincarnated. So
yeah, this is something we did touch on last time we spoke about this, but we kind of said that like disassembling a deck can be a very emotional thing. Like it's like you're, giving it a funeral by taking it out of the sleeves.
Yeah.
It's really like, it's quite like, I put a lot of hard work into this.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're reluctant to unsleeve or put down the sick deck.
Yeah.
God, that was dark. I'm sorry. That was so dark. But like sometimes
it's gone to a farm upstate. As they say in
running
America.
in an open field. No, but like, it can be really hard because we put a lot of work into it and we don't want to do it. But sometimes we need to do that so we can find the next deck that we absolutely love and are reaching for out of our bags all the time.
Exactly. And so this is what we found with Farewell Sweet decks is that like as we were disassembling decks, often we were grabbing our favorite 10, 20, 40 cards from that deck and building it into a new one. So I guess, we're looking at rebirth, looking at continuation. So the idea that some of our decks have died, but could the soul of it kind of live on? It's not going to be the same deck.
The essence of the deck is still alive.
It won't be the same deck. It won't be the same commander, but the feeling of the deck or the goal of the deck might be possible to revisit in a future deck. So I guess we'll look at whether the decks can be reborn that we've disassembled.
Do you want to go through it like as in each category of reasons why we disassembled?
I think we should. So I think that's the easiest way to think about like why. Again, I think these are the 3 reasons that people do disassemble decks. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. And then I guess we'll decide whether they could be reborn.
Yeah.
Because most of these,
quite
some
exciting.
of them kind
it's like rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
Exactly.
I kind of want Fallout Boy to start playing as we're doing this.
Hell yeah. So the first reason that we identified way back in Farewell Sweet deck was if the deck is the same every time that we play it. I think this is a really common problem with decks, obviously that are very linear. But also decks that have a very consistent commander engine, a deck where the commander is this crucial piece that kind of pulls everything together, because naturally what's going to happen is that all these other cards are just contributing to the commander doing what the commander wants, which is the same thing pretty much every time.
Yeah, 100%. I also think that the ultimate reason why we disassemble it is not because it's doing the same thing every time, because like I have CDH decks where it's doing the same thing every time, but it's a CDH deck. I want it to do that.
Yes.
The reason why we disassemble them is because they bore us.
Yes.
And it's something we've seen happen before. So when we're deciding what deck to play in a new pod, we don't reach for it because we're like, I know what's going to happen when I play this deck.
Yeah, and I think for both of us, a lot of the appeal of Casual Commander is these decks where you kind of have to solve it on the fly.
Yeah, variance. It's the variance part of it.
We love variance in our Commander decks, and so often when we have built these decks that do the same thing every time, unless it's CDH, of course, and I completely agree, they just get boring. And so, for example, one of the decks I've disassembled in the last 12 months or so, I had a Sisay Weatherlight Captain deck.
Oh, I remember this deck.
It was a Shrines deck, which I thought was really original, and then a bunch of other people did as well.
it's one of Sisay's themes on EDH, right?
It's very common these days, yeah. So Sisay is a 3-mana creature for 2 and a white. You can pay Wooburg, so white, blue, black, red, green, and she gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. I think she's a 2/2 at base. So if you've got a blue permanent and a green permanent, as well as Sisay, she gets +2/+2, another color +3/+3, etc. You can pay Wooburg and activate Sisay, and you search your library for a legendary permanent card with mana value less than her power. So as you have more colors among permanents, you can tutor bigger and bigger things out of your deck. How did it play? It built a pillow fort of shrines. So it was looking to search for Sanctum of All, namely was the big one. This is the 5-mana one that doubles all your shrine triggers, but also tutors a shrine every upkeep. So I was using Sisay to find the shrines I needed, and then I would sort of find other enchantments and sort of soft stacks, legendary creatures, this kind of thing, make it almost impossible to kill me, and then my shrines would slowly drain the table.
Yeah,
that was
you had
kind of
the Shrine of Stonefang, which would like...
Yeah, Sacred of Stonefangs.
Yeah,
yes,
that was like one of the win conditions.
That was the main win condition for sure. So what was the problem with the deck? It's a tutor in the command zone. So it meant that I tended to find the same objectively correct cards pretty much every time, usually in the same order. Like it was very rare that I would search for a shrine that tapped something when I could instead search for the shrine that ramps me, or the shrine that draws me a card every upkeep for every shrine I control.
Yeah.
And so what tended to happen was it was just really boring to pilot, because it was like, okay, I guess that Sisay is big enough now that I go and find Sanctum of All. And now that I've got Sanctum of All, I guess I find the life gain shrine and the life drain shrine.
Yeah.
Like, it just, it was the same every single time.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those, especially like a tutor in the command zone is one of the things that I'm now like really running away from when I'm looking at building commanders. I was going to build the Kellen deck, the Boros Kellen that
it has an adventure, right?
Yeah,
so
tutors
firstly tutors an aura and
equipment.
Aura equipment. So it's like open the armory,
and
basically.
then it's a creature body that gives all tokens you control plus a bunch of stuff for each sword that Kellen's holding, basically. It's kind of crazy card.
Yeah.
And I wanted to build it, but the reason I didn't was also because I've seen you play this Sisay Shrines list a million times, and when you have like the ability to like actively go get the best card in your deck every time at the start of the game, it just means you always get it. And I know that sounds like a really, really good thing, but like I want choice and decision trees in my commander deck. And I felt that that was your problem with this deck of like every single time you tutored, it was like this disappointment of like, well, I should get the green shrine that gives me extra mana because then I can put more shrines from my hand into play. That's like always the first one you got. And then it was usually the blue one. And then it was usually Sanctum of All by that point.
Or then, like, so much of the time, the combat damage would be the thing that I was most afraid of because I didn't really play many creatures in the deck. So I'd go and find Pramicon, Sky Rampart, which I think is a fun card. But when you play Pramicon every single time, and every time someone's threatening your life total, the correct decision is to go and find Pramicon. And again, you can always find it because of Sisay. You always have the ability at instant speed to find Pramicon when you need it. Yeah, like, there were interesting cards and strategies in the deck that I never played because it was never right to. Like, there was no point in the game where I was like, I want to get the shrine that taps a creature for 5 and a white and costs 1 less for every shrine I control. Like, it was never the right decision to do that.
But also, like, the pods never affected it. Like, something that I notice about, like, a good commander deck is the way you play it or the decision tree choices that you make along the way will change depending on who you're sitting across from.
Yes.
But Sisay, because it's like this pillow fort thing, it actually doesn't care at all about what the other decks are doing because it's trying to build its own thing. So regardless of who you're sitting against, you're always tutoring the same thing with Sisay. And the shrines are always doing their thing because they're upkeep triggers and like sometimes post-combat or pre-combat main phase triggers. It's, I don't know. I every time I saw it, I was like, you don't look like you're deciding what to do here.
No, it was
You're
just like I'm
itself.
doing I'm goldfishing the deck, basically. And it was the same goldfish every time. Could this deck be reincarnated? It kind of has been. I took all the enchantments that I liked out of this deck and I built Estrid the Mask.
Oh yeah, you just went like full-blown Enchantress.
I just went Enchantress. I really enjoy the Pillow 40 kind of thing. I enjoy enchantments. I like the Enchantress theme. I just think it's kind of fun.
You just love Sphere of Safety.
Yeah, I do love Sphere of Safety.
Ghostly Prison, but instead of paying 2, you pay X for each enchantment you control.
Yeah, so if you have 5 enchantments, then it's like, okay, yeah, you can attack me, but you have to pay 5 for every attacker.
Crazy.
They just stop attacking you.
It also says Planeswalkers. So the fact that your commander is a Planeswalker, it's actually one of the best cards in your deck.
Yeah, it's actually really strong. I think it was printed in that precon as well, that Estrid the Mask was in as well. So
the fact that they added the Planeswalker you control,
they knew what they were doing. And yeah, like I really enjoy my Estrid deck. I find it really fun because Estrid is like a good value piece in the deck, but is not essential. Like the deck basically plays itself without Estrid, and Estrid is like sort of an untap all my lands kind of effect, or protect a key piece by giving it Umbra armor. So if it would be destroyed, it removes the Umbra armor instead.
It's really cool.
It's a great deck. It still does Pillow Fort things, but yeah, in terms of shrines, I don't think I will ever build a shrine deck ever again.
No.
It was terribly boring. And yes, I don't think I'll ever build a tutor in the command zone ever again either.
Honestly, after seeing the lesson that Sisay taught you, I'm probably not going to build a tutor in the command zone ever. Either. I think that I really like how Estrid said, like, I really like this style of play that Sisay gave me, which is like this Pillow Fort style play.
Yeah.
The shrines are boring and the tutor's boring. What if I just went all in on the Pillow Fort and the Enchantress engines?
Yeah.
And you found it. Like, that is the perfect explanation of a deck that the thing that was wrong with it was like this decision trees.
Yeah.
And now in Estrad, you have those decision trees.
Yeah.
You choose what creature to enchant. You choose what land to enchant.
Planeswalkers naturally have this as well, right? They have an uptick and a downtick that you can access. So you're kind of like, oh, is it important for me to protect something right now and give it Umbra armor? Or do I want to untap all my enchanted lands and ramp a little bit? Like, should I cast Estrad now? Should I cast Estrad later? I've
not piloted your Estrad deck yet, and I would really like to.
That would be really not the style I normally associate with you.
No, that's why I want to do it.
I'd like to see you play that. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Next Commander night, let's do it.
Yeah. Decks that are the same every time. Is there a deck that comes to mind for you that it was like this?
Yeah, and I told you this like only a few nights ago, and it shocked you, and it might shock some of
this is a very recent disassemble.
Yeah, and it might shock some of our really OG listeners. My Yuriko Tiger Shadow deck is disassembled.
Huge day. You have had this deck for a long time. It was one of the first decks you brewed when I was living with you. Like probably like the third or fourth deck you ever built, I reckon.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Yuriko is 1 blue and a black for a 1/3.
That sounds right.
Yeah, 1/3.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I think so.
Wow, that shows how long ago it was since I played it.
Sure.
And then it has the amazing ability, Commander Ninjutsu. For blue and a black, you can return an unblocked attacking creature you control to your hand and put Yuriko onto the battlefield. It taps and attacking.
Yep.
There is also
it cheats command attacks, by the way. It's an activated ability that puts it onto the battlefield. It's not cast.
Activated
so it does
from the command zone.
Yep, it does not care at all about command attacks whatsoever.
Well done, Watsy. And then there's also the bit that you really, really build around, which is whenever a ninja you controls deals combat damage to a player or an opponent. I think it's opponent.
Probably.
Yeah, it says opponent.
Yeah.
You reveal the top card of your library, and each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value.
And then you put it into your hand.
And then you
it effectively draws the card as well. Yeah.
But it doesn't draw you a card, so it doesn't even trigger Orcus Bowmaster.
True.
But like this card is just
it's a house.
Insane. So like how did it play out? I can tell you the turn by turn plays.
It was very much like this. Yeah.
Turn 1, unblockable creature, like a Ginger Brute or what is it? Changeling Outcast is a great one. That's a great
because it's also a ninja.
Yeah, but like any 1-drop unblockable creature that you can play.
Like Siren Stormtalker or whatever it is, it's just like a blue 1/1 unblockable merfolk. That's valid.
There's a million of them. They're all common. They cost a dime a piece. You chuck that down turn 1. Turn 2, you ninjutsu Yuriko out of the command zone. You get a combat damage trigger. You put an extra card in your hand. Fantastic. You're off to the races.
And you started burning the table as well.
And like you could hit. Feasibly, Draco was in my deck. You could 16 each of your opponents, but like
cooked.
The other crazy thing about this deck that I really loved, because I was getting into the rules at that time, split cards. The mana value of the entire card counted as the whole mana value of the card.
Is Find Finality one of the blue-black ones?
No, Find Finality is Golgari. You're thinking of Commit to Memory.
Commit to Memory, yes. So that's
like 11.
It's got Aftermath, right? So it's like a 3-mana sorcery and then like a 5-mana sorcery or something like that.
Yeah.
And then altogether,
like 6-mana sorcery.
It looks at the whole mana value.
So you
of
can
the card.
dome the table for like 11, right? So like that could be early as turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
Turn 3, you set up some kind of top deck manipulation, whether it's Sensei's Divining Top, Scroll Rack, or just Brainstorm or like a Halimar Depths even.
Yep.
And then turns 4 to 6, you protect, you rinse and repeat, unblockable, ninja, top deck, manipulate, big spell revealed off the top, burn the table down.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's the deck.
It has a goal and it does it very, very consistently.
Yep. So the problem, it did it all the time.
Yeah.
And I got really bored of it. And it's like, there were some interesting little things you can do with ninjutsu, like you can ninjutsu a creature post-combat, for example.
Yeah.
There's also some really complicated, like very intricate ways you can manipulate the top of your library, and like sequencing is really important in Yuriko. But once you've mastered it, you kind of know how to do it, and then it's like very simple to play out. The other thing that I found really boring with it was the deck was really easy to mulligan.
Right.
I found
you know exactly what your turns 1 through 3 need to look like, and so it's like, okay, does this have 2 lands and an unblockable creature in it? Then I keep it.
Yes, exactly. And it was like if I had it, it was just like, oh yeah, sure, I keep it. But it's like always the same, no matter what I mulligan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then also there wasn't much decision making that I had to do. Same thing with Sisei Shrines. It was just like, do this. And because I had this deck for such a long time, I kept upgrading it and kept trying to put some things in that would, for me, try and make it interesting. But the power level just kept increasing. And now Yuriko is a very viable CEDH commander.
Yep.
And
I've lost to it on stream. Actually, if you go back a few videos that I played CDH with Strix, very, very good Eurocode. Well, CDH player in general.
Well, he wrote the primer on the database Eurocode deck list.
He's an absolutely
he is the Eurocode player.
Outstanding Eurocode player. But yeah, he wrecked my stacks list. I stacked out everybody else, but could not get a containment priest down is the really important one for Eurocode.
Yeah, but this is the thing that I found was my deck was like so powerful, but it wasn't played in it wasn't playable at the CDH tables because it just didn't have all the fast mana and didn't have all the free counter spells. I had a Force Negationer, but like it just wasn't there. So I started not reaching for it because A, I was bored of it. And B, because no table would accept that kind of power level.
It's just like, I think there are definitely play groups out there where a Eurocode deck is probably like just right. Like if you're in one of those you've all been playing a long time, you all spend a lot of money on cards or you proxy up really expensive cards or whatever, but you don't want to play CDH, Eurocode is there. And like, I think this was the deck that for a long time I pointed to of yours where I was like, I feel like I'm missing a Eurocode level deck. I don't really own any decks that hang at this power level. But the problem is you play a lot with me.
Yeah.
And we match power really well. We know each other's decks really well. I don't play at this power level.
No.
We don't really know that many people. There's some people in our playgroup who play at this power level, but not that often.
Yeah.
And so like it's very rare that someone wants to play high powered but not CEDH in our playgroup. And people are usually like, either I want to play casual goofy stuff or CDH. It's pretty rare someone's like, I want to play this busted but not CDH thing. And so I just never saw it anymore.
I also found that it's a weird part of high powered that people, even that play high powered, don't want to play against. Because like, for example, some of the high powered pods I'm playing against at the moment, people are playing still quite casual commanders, but building them really strongly. So it kind of like levels out. And instead of winning on turn 6, they're still winning on around turn 8, 9, or 10 even.
Yeah, they're just assembling a great engine really
doing
early.
More powerful stuff. Whereas Eurocode was like, I want to win the game on turn 6.
Yeah, there's not really
a different kind of power.
Yeah, it's just the nature, I think, of like a CDH tier commander is like they tend to be very low in mana value.
Yeah.
Very busted either card advantage or ramp engines going on.
Or
often both.
Straight up win condition.
Or just win. And Eurocode has 2 of these things, right? Yeah. Eurocode can draw you a card on turn 2 and then every subsequent turn if you do it right.
Yep.
Sometimes multiple cards a turn.
Yep.
On her own. And is just single-handedly the thing that wins you the game. You don't need any other win con in a Eurocode deck.
No.
Because it cheats the command attacks, and just on its own, revealing enough cards off the top will kill your opponents.
We used to talk about my Eurocode deck as like the exception to the rule when we talked about like, the number of card draw pieces you should have in your deck. Because
you didn't need them.
I didn't need them. I ran barely any card draw, quote, in the deck.
Yeah.
And I ran no win conditions in the deck.
Yeah.
Like, so the ultimate question,
could it be reincarnated?
No. Absolutely. There is no other deck that plays like Eurocode.
No.
But kind of yes. And I'm saying kind of yes because there is no other deck that plays like Eurocode.
Yes.
I will point to Gora Gora and Satoru, which...
Fun commander. This is the Grixis one. When a creature that entered the battlefield this turn deals combat damage to an opponent, you create a 5/5 dragon.
Yep, with flying.
So great with ninjutsu specifically because you're cheating in a creature that now has entered the battlefield this turn.
It's the same play pattern, but instead of revealing cards off the top and doming the table, you're making 5/5s.
It still wins the game, but it's not like as hyper efficient as Eurocode. Yeah.
So like I could have looked at that, but at the same time, one of our good friends and who's played on stream with us a bunch of times, Brad, already has this deck, and I just kind of hate building things that my playgroup already has built.
Yep.
So how did this deck get reincarnated? Well, interestingly, the moment that I stopped playing Eurocode, I started playing more CDH. The thing for me that reincarnates Eurocode and the spirit of the deck lives on is the fact that I now play decks that are at a very high power that do the same thing every time. Because I do like decks that do the same thing every time because I feel they're very consistent and I make sure I win, which I really like doing.
Yeah.
But CEDH is the place for me for that now. Do you know what I mean?
So the deck itself might not have a successor as a deck.
Yeah.
But the mindset of hyper efficient,
super linear,
streamlined win cons, linear tutors, all this kind of stuff. You feel like that mindset that you acquired playing Eurocode lives on in the form of playing Niv Mizzet, in the form of playing Jessica Timner.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. I respect that.
I feel like I like the way you worded it. The deck didn't live on, but the mind state of the deck lived on, and it lived on in CEDH. And I think that this category, the category of the decks that play the same each time, that's the only category where you can take not the deck but the mind state with you.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I get that. I that makes sense because I think it's interesting that my way out of this category of decks that are the same every time was to make it not the same every time, which I think is valid. Like that's one way you can do it. But I think the other way of like, no, I like that decks are the same every time. I just don't like this deck. I agree. I think CEDH is the place to keep that going.
If you really, really enjoy playing a very linear and focused, and if you enjoy winning, take that mind state to CEDH. You should give it a go.
Definitely. We haven't been talking for that long, but I think it still might be time for a thrifty interlude.
Thrifty interlude when we're resurrecting decks. This is kind of like the scene in that creepy film in the graveyard where the grave robber takes a break, stabs the shovel into the dirt, and has like a sandwich in the middle of the night in the graveyard.
It's that like mid shot of someone with their like feet dangling into the grave and eating a sandwich.
Yeah, like hands are muddy and they're eating like crisp white bread.
The dichotomy of life and death.
Yeah.
I like that.
Beautiful, poignant, also very macabre.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is not going to be very macabre, but you know.
But we're taking a break in that way.
We'll enjoy it anyway. Yeah, I like it. So we obviously still need to talk about decks that pop off or do nothing and decks that don't suit our playstyles. But before that, we're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card. And as is tradition, I will be performing. And this week, it's the Cowled Merchant with some new wares. James, you want to read the card we're featuring this week?
I'm so excited. This card's already technically been performed before.
It has, a long time ago and in pretty poor fashion. So
if you want to check it out, it's still online.
It's still up there.
Unless Walt takes it down before this episode goes live.
This will be the better portrayal, is what I'm going to say.
It's Loyal Unicorn. For 3 and a white, you get a creature unicorn that's a 3/4 with vigilance and has lieutenant. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to creatures you control this turn. Other creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn.
This is my best friend. Yes, she's a unicorn. Yes, occasionally she impales someone. No, for the last time, she will not eat an apple right out of your hand. Why do people keep asking me that? She's many things. A friend, a colleague, a fearsome competitor, a war criminal, a malicious psychopath, a car salesman, but she is also really good at itching the top of your head. I bet they didn't tell you that in the newspapers. Together, we're unstoppable. Or, you know, she's unstoppable. Frankly, she could kill me in an instant. Get budgeted.
Can we make it canon that the Cowled Merchant, when he's peddling his wares, he rides the Loyal Unicorn to the next town? Like,
sure.
I'd love to make that canon.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Done.
Keen, locked in. That's
fan art, please start doing your magic.
Theo, no. If you enjoyed that, text posts are released every Thursday in our Discord server.
I'm not sure if we told you guys about this, but we're really, really hyped about it.
Yes.
And the Thrifty Thursdays channel still exists.
Thrifty Thursdays channel, you can, when you join, there's a role you can click and you can get little pings whenever I post in there every Thursday. And
it's a discussion channel too, so you can
talk about the card and go like, hey, I love Loyal Unicorn, and especially when it scratches the top of my head, you can say that if you'd like to.
And if you do have any newspaper clippings, you can send them through.
Yep, so that I can destroy them.
Yeah, because they shouldn't tell you that in the news.
Famine.
No.
Famine? Let's move on.
Blasphemy?
I think blasphemy is what I was going for.
If this doesn't prove that these episodes are recorded like unscripted mostly and live in one take...
Yeah,
that should really do it.
Try to imagine why we would ever write the word famine in a script about Commander gameplay. Anyway,
the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse approach.
There you go.
We've got some more decks that we've disassembled that we have to talk about.
We do. So the second category of decks that we felt like we're not working and we disassembled and we're still doing it because we've done it recently as well. Decks that pop off or do nothing, and the kind of subheading here is the glass cannon decks, right? Decks, when they work, they're fantastic. They're like this huge engine. They're unstoppable. They're amazing.
Well, they usually win in one go. And it's like, wow, okay, there you go.
Huge, massive turn. But when they're not working, nothing is happening. Like, there's no appeal to this deck if the engine is not online. If the engine is not online, nothing's happening. There's no grind. There's no interplay. There's no decision trees. It's just you've gone all in, and either you win or nothing happens, and there's nothing in between.
It's almost like one of those decks where, like, for example, if a board wipe resolves and you look at your board and go, well, there is zero way of me coming back.
Yeah, I've got nothing to do.
I'm basically scooping at this point.
Yeah. And look, like, every deck can have a game where you just get hosed, of course.
Yeah.
But these are decks that only get hosed or pop off. There's no middle ground of like, ooh, I'm almost in the lead, or if I find the right card, I might get there, or like, let me draw 3 cards and see if I can hit my land. There's not this kind of deck. It's just like, no, either it goes great or it does nothing, and there's nothing in between.
And very similar to the last category, usually this revolves around the commander. Usually it's very commander-focused deck. Sometimes it could be very combo-focused. Like, it might not be an instant infinite win combo, but it could be like very like, I want these 3 cards on field at the same time, then I'm doing my thing.
So if any one of these 3 things gets removed, then suddenly my deck doesn't work anymore.
And then I'm not doing my thing, and the thing that I'm doing without the thing is nothing.
Yes. Yeah. They're temperamental, and I agree. Like, the commander is often a key piece in it. Either it's the engine itself, and so if the commander is
usually one of those 3 cards, right?
It's one of those 3 that's making essential to the deck.
That's probably why you built it, because you were like, oh, I want to build around this weird, obscure idea, and if I can get it to work, the fact that one of those pieces is in my command zone, maybe it can work.
Yep.
Anyway.
I have a deck like this. Admittedly, it's not actually that much about the commander, but it is absolutely an all-in pop-off or do-nothing deck. My Krark and a Chroma list.
Oh, your Boros Polymorph deck. I honestly forgot about this deck, man.
It's,
Firstly, explain what the deck does, because you have to, because some listeners might not know, because you were one of 2 people that built this.
At the time that I was building it, on EDH Rec, there were 2 decks, and one of them was mine.
Yeah. Crazy.
My Moxfield list. And I knew, because I would scroll through the list and be like, that card's in my deck, that card's not, and it was just like 50%, 50%, 50%. Very funny. How did it play? So, the 2 commanders were Krark, who's the 2-mana red commander. When you cast an instant or sorcery, flip a coin. If you win it, you copy the spell, otherwise you bounce the spell to your hand.
Yeah.
A Chroma is the 7-mana creature that like kind of pumps your creatures every combat for each keyword they have. So if they got flying and first strike, they get +2/+2. If they got menace as well, +3/+3, trample +4/4, etc. Right?
It actually says on the card, and so on.
It does.
It's one of my favorite lines on any Magic card ever. It's
and so on for blah 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 blah. And lists a bunch of more. So how did it play? So the deck. How long do you have? You would make a bunch of tokens. That was the first thing. Yeah. You got to go wide.
Step 1, cast Krenko's Command or something like that.
Yeah, usually a spell, because then Krark could copy the spell. That was often a really crucial thing. So you had to win the coin flip on some of these spells. Make a bunch of tokens, make 6 tokens, whatever. Cast a Polymorph. So one of these effects where you exile a creature, you reveal until you hit a creature card from your library, put it on the battlefield, straight onto the battlefield. You don't have to cast it or anything.
And what were the creatures in the deck, Walt?
So there were 6 creatures in the deck, but the 2 that you were really looking for were Mirrorwing Dragon or Zada Hedron Grinder. So these are the creatures that say, when you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Mirrorwing Dragon or Zada, copy it for each other creature you control.
Yeah. And target those creatures.
Those creatures. Yeah. So you cast a pump spell on one of them, you pump your whole board, etc. Your goal then is to cast like a cantripping spell. This, by the way, it resembles a Feather the Redeemed deck. Have you ever seen a Feather deck?
Very close to a Feather
deck. Very similar. They often will play Zada or Mirrorwing Dragon in them.
Yeah.
So you cast a cantrip spell like Defiant Strike.
Yep.
Creature gets +1/+0, draw a card. It's copied, so you draw 10 cards because you've got 10 creatures on your board or something.
And each creature gets +1/+0.
Yes.
Yeah.
The goal was to cast these spells then with Krark out, and Krark actually bouncing the spell was better, because you copy it for each other creature and then you bounce the original back to your hand. You just cast it again.
Yeah, Krark weirdly acted as the Feather in this deck.
Yeah, it could.
Because Feather
was also in the deck.
Yeah, Feather, for those that don't know, exile the spell and then return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step.
So this was the same thing. It was giving you that spell again and again and again, so you could keep on cantrip and keep on drawing cards. And then the optional win con, which happened very rarely, but did happen.
I've seen it happen.
Was a Chroma Vision of Ixidor would be cast, and most of my spells, my pump spells I was casting, gave keywords like First Strike or Lifelink or Flying. And so then I'd cast a Chroma, and then suddenly those creatures, which are already quite big and had all these keywords, got like +5/+5 or something.
So for those that haven't been following along, there's so much of this deck that is up to a coin flip and so many things going right. But why don't you run me through what the problem of this deck was?
The problem was, let me run you through the list of things that had to go right for this deck to work. You had to make lots of tokens, which was very hard to do consistently because you're in Boros.
That's one criteria.
You had to find a polymorph spell. There were only 4 or 5 in the deck.
Second criteria.
You had to polymorph into the correct thing, because sometimes if you hit Feather or Young Pyromancer or something when you needed Mirrorwing Dragon or Zada, cool, nothing's happening now.
Okay, 3.
You had to have the cantrip spells in your hand.
4.
You had to not miss land drops. It was so important that you hit your land drops.
You're in Boros, that's hard, that's 5.
You had to pop off without being interrupted when you finally had everything together.
We play Commander in 2024, that's hard, that's 6.
And then and then 7 was no one could have an out like a fog. If someone fogs, like you spent your entire hand and all your resources on this board state. Someone fogs, it's like, cool, I lose.
Yeah.
Good game, everyone. So look, if any number of those things didn't happen, I would literally draw a card and pass the turn every single turn.
It's not just like you need a combination of those 7 criteria to happen. You needed like all of them to happen correctly.
Any number of those things doesn't happen, and it's like you have all the tokens, you don't have Zada, nothing happens. You have Zada and Mirrorwing Dragon and Feather, but no tokens, nothing happens. Like there's so many ways it can go wrong.
I will say that my experience with this deck was that it was quite positive. Like I think both of us have fond memories of this deck.
Absolutely.
Because it was firstly, incredibly fun to brew. This was, by the way, this was a commander deck that Walt didn't let me in on before I played against it. And then also, he hid the commanders from me in the command zone the first time he played against me and said, you have to guess the commanders of the deck I'm playing.
And then also, as I'm playing the deck, you have to guess how this deck wins.
Yeah, figure out what the win condition was.
So I cast Krak, and he was like, oh, it's a Spellslinger deck. And I was like, no.
I was like, okay.
I think it was when I polymorphed into Feather the Redeemed, and you were like, oh,
it's a hidden commander,
it's a Feather kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was, and then when I saw a polymorph spell hit Mirrorwing Dragon, I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. But like, it was incredibly fun to brew. It was also kind of fun to see happen at the table when it did happen, because you were like,
when it popped off,
me, you had to jump through so many hoops.
It was like a miracle, and it was incredible to behold.
And it was like watching a miracle happened, and you're like, it's so powerful what it was doing. You were drawing like 13 cards, and you had 15 creatures that were all pumped, and then you returned all those spells to your hand. It's like, what the hell? This is so powerful. But because you had to meet 7 criteria for the deck to work, no one felt bad about it. Everyone laughed. I mean, you can hear it in my voice now. I'm fondly remembering it.
Yeah.
But the problem was that would happen 1 out of maybe 20 times it was played.
Yeah, it was rare that everything came together, and most of the time, like when I would pull the deck out, I'd go to myself like, okay, this is a game where if nothing happens, I'll have to be content with that.
Yeah,
like, that was literally
I just have to accept that I'm probably going to have to scroll through TikTok on my phone while I play.
I was like sitting down with the expectation that could happen. This deck, by the way, is still in my Mox field because I am really proud of where it ended up.
It was a great build.
It's a very fun and very weird deck. So if you're interested in looking at it, it's on my Mox field profile. But yes, it got disassembled for a reason. It just did the same thing and only that thing. And like in this category, if it was not doing the amazing, incredible thing, it did actually nothing. Could it be reincarnated? No. There is no deck. There is no deck that is like this deck. Yes, it resembled a Feather deck, but in terms of what I was actually doing and all the hoops I had to jump through, there was no... I'm not aware of any deck that's like this deck.
But also, it resembled a Feather deck, but worse, because Feather guarantees that you get the spell back to hand. Feather is consistent.
Yeah.
Feather, like, Feather is a commander that adds consistency, whereas Krak is a commander that adds variance.
Yes.
And it's like...
chaos, really.
Yeah, actual chaos. A coin flip. It couldn't be more random.
Yeah. So, look, I could build a new polymorph list. I think polymorph is a fun archetype in Commander. But it would be a lot more consistent and a lot less weird, and that in itself would not be the spirit of the deck that I built.
Yeah.
If it was consistent and not weird, then it would not be that deck. You know what I mean? Like that was the spirit of the deck, was like, it's this glass cannon, it's silly, it's objectively worse than a Feather deck, than a Zada Hedron Grinder deck, but it's so much more fun and stupid as a result. It was very fun while it lasted, but yeah, that deck is staying dead.
I was really sad to see it go, but I think that it would have just ended up sitting in a deck box collecting dust.
It would have been like the kind of deck that I'd bust out like once every 30 games. People would be like, "Oh, it's Walt's stupid Boros." It's just like fine.
If you busted it out every 30 games, you would only win with it once every 2 years.
Oh, don't remind me. Anyway, yes. Farewell and
so long, goodbye.
So long.
Adios.
Not seeing you again. James, a deck of yours that popped off or did nothing, and there was no in between.
The Glass Cannon. I have spoken about this recently because we did all my decks disassembled.
Yes.
And this was one of the decks that we actually decided that would get disassembled.
That was in that episode. I think it might even have been one that you, if it's the one I'm thinking of,
preemptively.
You literally, we started talking about it and you were like, I know the whole idea of this episode was to decide which ones get cut. I've already broken this deck. It's not coming back.
This is my Gishath Sun's Avatar deck.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Gishath is an 8 mana dinosaur. It's a 7/6.
Yep.
With haste, trample, and vigilance.
It's in Naya, so green, white, red.
Yep. 5 green, white, red. And then when it deals combat damage to an opponent, you reveal that many cards from the top of your library and put all dinosaur cards revealed that way onto the battlefield. So dinosaur type deck.
It's so Timmy. It's unbelievable.
It's like if you just like big creatures and big stompy stuff, this was the deck for you.
Yep.
So basically the deck played out exactly how I just explained it, really.
Yeah.
The first couple of turns, you want to ramp as quickly as you can to get Gishath out. You want to flick big dinos off the top. So you want to like hit those dinosaurs.
Yep.
And then you want to protect the hell out of your board and you just want to rinse and repeat and like close the game out with typical overrun effects.
Yeah, Overwhelming Stampede was busted in that deck.
Yeah, everything goes +7/+7.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right.
That's basically the deck. It's very simple. It is the typical Naya, I'm a big creature, raw, stompy.
I want to point out that at like these days, there are much more dinosaur commanders available because Ixalan got visited again.
Yeah.
At the time, if you wanted to play dinosaurs in Commander, it was Gishath or it was
Zatalpa. Not Zatalpa.
Zakama, which was not at all
a dinosaur.
Didn't do anything for dinosaurs. No. It was just a big dinosaur itself. So basically, it was Gishath. That was how you played dinosaurs.
Yeah, and look, part of the reason why I disassembled it was because Ixalan was coming out and there was new dinosaurs, and I was like, I don't want to upgrade this deck.
Yeah, like, it's a big sign that it's not something you're excited about anymore.
Yeah, if you know, for example, Tornos is one of my favorite decks at the moment. If a new set came out with charge counters, I'd be like, oh, new toys, let's go.
Yeah.
Ixalan came out, new dinosaurs, and I was like,
Yeah.
So, look, that was part of the problem, but the big problem was the fact that it was the glass cannon, right? So what did I need to do to get this deck to work? And it's similar to your Kraken Chroma deck. There was lots of steps that I needed to get through that all needed to land into place for me to win.
Yep.
First, I have to ramp to an 8 mana commander.
Yeah, you ramped a lot in that deck.
That deck was like genuinely every spell between 1 and 3 and 4, probably 4 mana value was ramp.
Yeah.
Like genuinely every spell.
Yep.
So you want to get it out as early as you can. So you need at least like 2 to 3 ramp spells at a minimum in your opening hand to get Gishath out at a turn where it is going to be like competitive.
It was like a 20 ramp spell kind of deck, if not
I think
higher,
it might have been even more.
30 maybe,
Which was at a detriment because then the flips were less likely to hit, all that kind of stuff. So then obviously you then have to try and protect it with your life because Gishath is 100% a kill on sight commander.
Yep.
Then it's all down to luck basically by hitting big dinosaurs off the top with its ability.
You just don't know what's there. I mean, there was Congregation at Dawn.
That was a
great in the deck.
card.
It's like an instant speed. I think it's like green, white.
It's and green, white.
Shoot
white,
3 creature cards from your library to the top of your library.
Yeah.
That card.
Yeah, you in response to the trigger, you cast this at instant speed.
That was the only way to stack the top of your deck. Otherwise, it was fully chance. Hey?
Yeah, because like, why would I run like a Sensei's Divining Top in this deck? Because it rearranges the top 3. And I can't put them to the bottom, so it's like
it's not worth it.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
So like, if you then get the dinosaurs, if you get lucky to miss the 20 ramp spells that I was running and hit the dinosaurs, you then have to straight up be arch enemy for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Like once people see it happen once, people are like, oh, we got to kill Gishath, or we have to make it Gishath unable to attack, or we have to do something. So you end up just recasting your commander over and over again, recovering from board wipes. And if you don't achieve any of those steps, you still just end up casting Gishath over and over and over again. Like the amount of times that I was like, okay, cast Gishath, attempt to move to combat. Before combat, go for the throat, sure. Yeah. Untap, cast Gishath again. Yeah. Swords to Plowshares, sure. Go again. It's just as the same thing over and over and over again, and it's usually like the same thing is trying to do the thing but never getting there because people hate Gishath.
Yeah. I think there's a type of deck that I associate really strongly with you and your playstyle, which is what we're going to get into soon, actually.
This is the next category.
But it's a value engine sort of enhancer kind of commander, a commander that lets you do a bunch of incremental small things, but faster and draw more cards and ramp more.
Taunos is the perfect example of this.
Is a really classic James deck. And this, I think, Gishath is like almost as far as you can possibly get from that style of playing Magic as you can, right? It is just Timmy. It is all Timmy. It's let me resolve this huge thing. I'm going to smack you in the face. Let's see what happens off the top. Like there are people who will enjoy that, and that's totally fine.
And build it. Build Gishath. It's like...
But I think, like, even then, if you just want to play big dinos, play Pantlatza.
Yeah, Pantlatza's way better.
That deck is so much more... It's a very similar kind of thing, right? It just lets your dinosaurs turn into more and more dinosaurs.
Much more consistent,
Much more consistent and much more interplay going on, right? This is the big thing. Like, you're not just going all in on the commander and going, man, I hope I deal combat damage and no one casts Swords to Plowshares. Pantlatza is like, no, like, just play dinos and see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So... could this deck be reincarnated? It could, yes, but I didn't do it. My friends did it.
Sure.
And other members of my playgroup did. So after the release of Lost Caverns, I realized that Gishath was on the way out. Yep. So I de-sleeved Gishath and just gave the cards or sold them and traded them to friends. And people were building Pantlatza at the time and dinosaur decks that were new and interesting because there were decks like Pantlatza and commanders that let dinosaurs be more complicated than just raw, let me go to combat.
Yeah.
So I didn't build it, but I think other people did, and I think the spirit of the deck lived on in that way.
Yeah,
but
that's nice.
I think, for me, it was definitely one of the decks one of the types of decks that I just was like, I'm not building this again.
Yeah.
Like a dinosaur type deck, no. Even like other typal decks. Like I've now given my Elf Ball deck, my Abomination of Llanowar deck.
Yeah, that's Theo's now.
To Theo because I just didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's not like typal go wide, strategies are just not my thing.
No, I mean, it's interesting. Yuriko now is also gone.
Yeah.
Do you own any typal decks now?
No, not at the moment.
I guess I'd struggle to call it a Hydra deck, but
that's
Zaxara the Exemplary makes Hydras, but the funny thing is you don't play very many actual Hydras in that deck. It's more like an X-spell typal deck.
It's a spellslinger deck that gets creatures out of the
that makes
value.
Hydras.
Yeah. And again, that's like one of my commanders that's like not the win condition, not the all in. It's like this is how I'm going to gain extra value out of what my deck is already trying to do.
Yeah, it's much more your style. Yeah. And again, it's like I don't think even if you want to build dinos, don't build Gishath because it is just go all in and hope, and it's not.
Look, I mean,
fun.
If you enjoy that playstyle, and if there's a place for it in your play group, whether it's like lower powered, fun, weird stuff, go for it. I think it's a fun commander.
It's totally fine, but I would encourage you to try Pantlatza first. I think 90% of players will have more fun with Pantlatza than you would with Gishath.
Yeah,
also Gishath can go in the 99 of your Pantlatza deck,
Yeah, 100%. And that's a good 99 card for that deck. Yeah, 100%. But like, you can also find another commander that isn't a dinosaur, but does stuff with combat damage triggers. Or does stuff with...
Samut, Voice of Dissent or whatever.
Chuck a bunch of dinosaurs
Untapped
in
creatures gives them haste, I think. And then Samut has double strike. And
then you can, pay a white and
untap a creature, I think.
Something like
there's
that. But like,
if you like combat tricks,
Or if you want to build like, Ishin. You can build Ishin dinosaurs. That would be cool. Double combat triggers.
Oh man, Mardu. You lose all the green ones though.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to play Gishath.
That'd be interesting. I'd like to see that.
Lots of white dinosaurs though.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I guess there's not really probably many dinosaurs that trigger when you attack because it's mostly damage.
It's attack triggers, isn't it? Most of them are damage triggers.
Yeah, Enrage. There's probably, I'm certain there's another Enrage commander out there that you could build these days. There's so many commanders that deal damage.
Oh, there's the green. Oh, God, that would be fun. There's that green-red dragon from the Forgotten Realms set that whenever it's dealt damage, you create a 5/3 dragon. You could just build an Enrage deck with that as your commander and make it dragons and dinosaurs.
That's fun.
That's pretty cool.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. In other words, there's lots of options besides Gishath is what we're getting at there. We kind of touched on it already, but the third category of decks that we disassemble was decks that just didn't suit our playstyle. So it's pretty self-explanatory. These are decks that just didn't suit the way that we like to play Commander, like to play Magic. We both have a very wide array of decks that we play and a wide array of strategies, but there are commanders.
We have our home turf.
Yeah, we have places that we like to go back to, and also like aversions, right? There's ways of playing Magic that we are averse to. Like we actively I don't want to do that, and it's usually from building a deck and going, wow, I just don't enjoy this.
I think that a lot of these decks we built intentionally to try and branch out.
Yes,
like we
did that a lot early days.
Yeah,
a lot more branching out.
I think you do in your Commander career, right? Because you're like trying to find your feet. If anything, I'd recommend people doing that. Like, try different strategies, build everything, because then, you will disassemble a deck and go, never again.
Yes, and that's a good thing. Yeah. Like, you've just eliminated a whole category of deck. Like, just the other day, I was looking at, me and you were messaging, actually. I was looking at, I've said before, I'm hoping to build...
Is this the mono black?
Yeah. I want to build a monocolored deck of every color. I built red way back when, and I'm probably not going to do it again. I've got a green deck, I've got a white deck. Black is probably the next one I'm looking at. And I've narrowed it down to like 4 commanders that I'm looking at. I won't spoil who I'm considering. But it's because I took about 15 of them, and then me and James were looking at it, and it was like, oh no, like these 10 are not the way I like to play Commander. Yeah. And so I won't have fun if I do that.
Yeah, I think I said one of the messages I sent you was like, here's my top 4 out of these cards. And these are the 3 things that I was like looking at specifically. One was how likely I think you are to enjoy it.
Yeah.
How excited I am to sit against it.
Which is valid.
And the third one was how viable it actually was. Because you had some mono black commanders that were just shit on that list.
It's not going to make the cut, but one of the cards still in my short list is Spirit of the Night, which is a 9 mana 6/5 with flying, trample, haste, first strike when it's attacking, and protection from black. The art is so beautiful.
I don't know why you had to read it out. Everyone knows what that card is. It's like one of the most played cards in our format.
You know it's on the reserve list.
Is it really? No way.
Because it's from Mirage. Like almost every card from Mirage is just like on the reserve list. Oh, is it funny. Every card? I don't know. It's only like $6 because it's bad. Like no one's like, I'm going to build this new modern deck out of. I mean, it would be illegal in modern. Anyway,
vintage.
We get distracted as you can tell. But yeah, like you can identify which decks you want to build based on decks you've built in the past and gone like, you see new Commander come out and you go like, this looks exciting. I wonder if I could build a deck around this. And then you think about it and you're like, actually, this looks a lot like that deck I built way back when.
And I hated that.
I'm probably going to hate this too. So,
okay, give us an example. What is something that you built that you was like, we're going to enjoy this, but God, no, after playing it, I hate this way of playing.
Wart the Raid Mother.
Oh, your Spellslinger deck.
My Spellslinger copies Goblins deck. So this is for 4 hybrid red-green. So you're in Gruul. She's like a 5/5 or whatever. It doesn't matter. When she enters the battlefield, you make 2 1/1 red and green goblins. Tokens. And when spells you cast have
Conspire.
Thank you. Conspire, which is basically you can tap 2 creatures that share a color with a spell that you cast while it's on the stack. Or actually not while it's on the stack. When you cast it explicitly. Yes. It would be a lot more egregious otherwise.
Part of the casting.
Yeah, you cast and it goes, you're casting. Do you want to copy this spell by tapping 2 creatures? If so, then you tap 2 creatures and you do it. So yeah, basically it was the deck would ramp a bunch to try and get Wart out really early. Obviously 6 mana is quite hard to get in Commander without ramping, or it takes a lot of time. In the meantime, I try to resolve lots of small goblins. It was a goblin deck.
Yep.
So the idea was...
Krenko's command.
Again, Krenko's command. But yeah, so making goblin tokens was really good with spells because I could copy those later. But also just like having goblins was good. And then I'd try and storm off once Wart came down with a bunch of copy effects, usually on a goblin making spell. So I'd have a spell that makes, 4 goblins or something. a 5-mana sorcery or something, but I'd copy that, and then I'd have a Twinning Staff down, which would copy it again.
Yeah.
Then I'd give them haste, and I'd do it was a Spellslinger deck, basically, but a Goblin, Spellslinger, go wide kind of win con.
Yeah.
The problem is that storming off is just such a solo thing, right? Like, when you are storming off, you are just sitting there spinning the wheels for 20 minutes trying to work out if you have the win or not. You're looking at your hand.
Look at me.
Let me look at this. Let me consider this again. Everyone else is just sat there waiting.
Yeah.
You do all this maths, try to remember what on earth your win cons are, and then in the end, either you win or you don't. I mean, to be honest, it's not dissimilar to the category of doing nothing or going all in.
Yeah,
similar to that as well.
It was a bit of a glass cannon-y deck, but I would say the reason that you disassembled it was because...
It was just the play style. It was storming off. I found that sitting there and doing, like, I didn't mind trying to find the win con. Like, it was kind of interesting, but I was looking around at the people I was playing with and being like, I hate this when I play against it. Like, there's no way people are enjoying watching me count mana over here.
I think Theo was one of the people that actually said to you, I don't want to play against that deck anymore.
Theo was like, I think you need to play it at higher powered pods, which is probably reasonable because the potential ceiling of that deck was through the roof.
And like even spell, like, you know, you talk about all that ramp package to get your big commander out.
Yeah.
But like, all of it was like Farseek, stuff like, you know, Cultivate.
Yeah, Nature's Law.
Conspiring, that's fucking sick.
Yeah,
like, you know, like just ramping twice as quickly to then cast more spells, because then all your card draw, you know, like, you know, you're casting a Reckless Impulse and conspiring that, and then you're finding a ramp piece to conspire that to cast more. It's a Storm deck.
Yeah.
It was a Storm deck.
It was a Storm deck. I mean, look, one of the win cons was Empty the Warrens.
Yes, which is Storm. It
create
literally
two
has
goblins, Storm. Yeah. That was totally a way that I could win. And then it just had stuff like Krenko in there. There was an Impact Tremors in the deck. Like, it was doing typical goblin things and storming off. Like, there was a lot going on. And yeah, when it popped off, it was pretty extraordinary. And
it was intense.
Very, you know, fun at times to try and find the win.
But I do very vividly remember helping you keep on top of your triggers and the stack, because like it was a mental upkeep nightmare.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, the question of could this deck be reincarnated? The main answer is no, because I just don't like storming off. I just don't find it fun, and to be honest, I probably never will enjoy just sitting there and doing maths and trying to find my big storm win con of some kind.
Even on the like lower end, like my Savine deck isn't a storm deck, but you wouldn't even play that because it's too much, like too many spells in a turn.
It's just not something that I tend to gravitate towards as a player. I think I like weird, goofy value things. I love having options, but like the closest I've come to a true storm deck, and even then I ended up being very much not a storm deck really, is my Catilda and Lear deck, which I would call a Spellslinger deck, but not a Storm deck, right? Like, it's a deck that wants to cast a lot of little spells, make a bunch of tokens, but it's not a deck that the Storm count matters at all. There's no cards in the deck with Storm. There's nothing that counts Storm. There's nothing where it matters how many spells you cast in a turn. It's just about chaining weird spells together.
Yeah, same with my Savine deck. It's not Spellslinger, but it's copying valuable spells.
Yes,
so,
but I would say that your Savine deck storms off more than Catilda and Lear does. Catilda and Lear is probably like a humans deck with a spells theme, whereas I would say yours is a spells deck more explicitly. That said, so it's not being reincarnated. However, I did end up building my Jund Goblins deck out of this deck.
Yeah, true.
My Victor says Marty.
I think the thing that you wanted was a Goblin deck, right?
I did. This was the problem with Wart as well, is that like it was a Goblin deck that didn't want creature type goblin in it, right? It wanted spells that made goblins, and you know, certainly Krenko was in there because why wouldn't you play Krenko? But like there were
goblins.
Yeah, there were like 20 goblins in the deck, and really what I wanted was like a 40 goblin deck, and that's exactly what Ve Victor Says Marty has been because it's all permanents. It's not at all interested in casting spells. It's just flipping random shit up the top.
It's the furthest from Storm you could possibly get, actually.
But it feels chaotic. It feels like goblins. It's in Jund as well, so I got to chuck black in there. There's some interesting black goblins that I got access to.
And a lot of the cards did port over. Like a lot of them.
Like the really good goblins.
Good goblin permanent
Muxus
cards.
came across.
Muxus
Krenko
moved,
came across. Impact Tremors came across. Like, it... I guess spiritually the deck did live on, but I want to be clear in being like, the reason this deck didn't work for me was because of the playstyle, and no, I don't think I can reincarnate this playstyle for me, personally.
Yeah, but like, still reincarnated bits of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It still lives on. It lives on, for sure.
All right, my deck that was not my playstyle whatsoever was Atraxa Praetor's Voice.
Yeah.
My Infect deck.
This might be like...
The deck you played against least.
I think it's a deck that I saw the least in terms of its lifespan as a deck. Like,
yeah.
The number of times I saw it in total before it was gone forever was very small.
Yeah. For good reason. I didn't enjoy it.
So this is the commander. It's everything but red, whatever that's called.
Sans red, and at the beginning of your end step, you proliferate. So this is why you build it as Infect, because the way you play it was, at the early game, you try and get at least one poison counter on each of your opponents, and then all you have to do is sit back, and Atraxa is a 4/4 flying lifelink death touch.
Yep.
A vigilance as well. So, like, you are just swinging, gaining little bits of life. So you just protect yourself, protect your board.
Yep.
And just proliferate your way to victory. That's like it.
Yeah.
And Atraxa Praetor's Voice has been on the top however many... I think she's been in the top 5 commanders of all time since she's been printed.
Yeah, like, years. Actual years she's been in that top 5 slot. I do think it's worth pointing out that you built this deck and maintained this deck prior to the release of the new Phyrexian sets.
Yes,
so you were not with the new poison counter cards, or the toxic, new proliferate, toxic. None of that was in there. It was the old Infect cards from the original Phyrexian block that was the core of the deck.
Which, you know, firstly was fun for me to build because it was an era of Magic that I didn't play. Yes. So I got to play with cards that I'd never played. Like, I wasn't there when they were coming out.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of like vicariously live through that time by building this deck. It was kind of fun for me. That was part of the reason why I enjoyed it.
We don't see a lot of those cards anymore.
No.
So it was cool to see them.
Yeah, like, you know, Phyrexian Swarm Lord. Like, that is
you don't see
a silly card, and no one's playing it in any deck. But it was cool to relive that experience, or live it for the first time.
Yes,
yeah,
sure.
I think the problem with this deck, firstly, again, it's a freaking kill on sight commander every time.
I mean, it gets to a point, right, when you're playing against it where it's like, I'm at 8 poison counters. I have to deal with.
If I let James get to his end step, I will die.
He just gets one proliferate thing and then end step, and I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah, but the real reason it was just dull to pilot is how I'm going to describe it. Like, it was just boring. It was all about waiting and, like, to use like quite visceral Phyrexian language, oozing your way over the finish line, like sliming oil, slicking your way over the finish line.
We've all heard of the tortoise, the hare, and the snail filled with oil.
The glistening snail. That is straight up a creature type that will come out soon. Like,
guaranteed.
There'll be a Phyrexianized snail from Bloomborough. Watch me predict Bloomborough. Bloomborough, the plane will still have oil on it, and there'll be a snail that's infected, and it will be like a superpower snail.
And then, in Modern Horizons 4,
The Rise of the Snail.
They'll make a snail-type commander. They'll make it a valid
We
strat.
already have, like, frog and that kind of stuff.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, maybe they group them together like leviathans, octopuses, and sharks. like the swamp creatures.
The little bugs.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Like an insect, snail...
Grist. You're just running Grist at that point.
Yeah, Grist. Anyway.
So yeah, like the deck was just boring for me. There wasn't like much choice in what was happening. There also was like no alternate win cons. For me, that is so boring. And that's like a big thing. Like Gishath, for example. It was like straight up, like there was at least an alternate win con in Gishath with commander damage. 7 power commander. That's something I can look for.
Yeah.
Atraxa, it was like all poison. Like that's it. It was just all poison. I just found it a little bit boring. I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't have enough words to describe it because when I've talked about it. It's just Infect. That's all it is.
It's interesting. Like, theoretically, I think sometimes as the sort of more blue mage of the podcast, people often, especially early days, associated you with like counter spells and control magic.
Well, like,
the funny thing is, I really like Niv Mizzet is a control deck, absolutely, but there are alternate win cons, and also it's a turbo deck. Like, it's trying to get Niv out really early. It's a combo deck. Like, there are aspects of Magic, like this realm of playing, that I associate so much more strongly with you than control. And I do think that this Atraxa Proliferate list was probably just an actual control deck, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a deck that wants to hold back all your answers, win through attrition, grind out your opponents. And I actually don't think that's your playstyle.
No, it's not. Like, even when I play Standard and other formats, I'm not a big fan of I have to admit, I love my Snow Fey deck in Pauper. That's one of my favorite Pauper decks, and that is a control deck.
Well,
but there's a lot of other stuff that it's doing.
Almost it borders on mid range as well.
Yeah,
I would argue.
I'd say mid range is much more what I'm about than hard Azorius control.
Yeah.
There's Azorius control in standard right now.
Yeah.
And I've not built it because it's fucking boring.
Yeah.
It just casts Wandering Emperor and board wipes.
Yeah.
So much fun. Yeah. Woo.
No, thank you.
So could it be reincarnated? No. Infect. Look, everyone built Infect for a little bit when New Phyrexia happened, all that kind of stuff. However, in a very similar way that you had some of the goblins transfer across into Asmadi, I managed to transfer a few of my Proliferate cards across into my Tornos deck.
Of course. This is where, like Throne of Geth and stuff. Like sacrifice an artifact, proliferate. Flux Channeler, cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. Yeah.
Fuel for the cause, a counter spell with proliferate on it.
I never put 2 and 2 together that you had all these cards because of Atraxa.
Yeah, and think about like when Atraxa got disassembled and when Tornos got built.
Yeah.
Very similar time. I was like looking at the cards and I was like,
wow, I've never put that together, but that makes a lot of sense. I think you were even playing some cards with charge counters in Atraxa, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
In your Incep, you proliferate, so why not? But yeah, it's funny that became kind of the core of your Tornos list.
It's bizarre.
And that deck is so much more you.
Yeah, so
much more. Like, it's not even comparable, really.
It's probably one of my favorite decks I've ever built. Like, it's in my top 4
It's
easily.
one of my favorite of yours. I think it distills down the aspects of you as a player that are really fun to play against. And look,
to play against, interesting. Yeah.
no, but like, and I want to be clear. Like, it make it sound like there's another deck that distills down all the things I don't like, which is true. It's Niv Mizzet Perun. No. But you know what I mean, right? Like, it distills down the things that are fun about playing against you, where it's like, what the fuck is James doing over there?
It's really hard to read his board state. He's got a plan. Not sure what the plan is, but he's going.
I'll trust that he'll find it.
Yeah. But I think the thing that a proliferate counters deck is not something that I'd like to do because most of the time you're doing it, you're either doing it with +1 counters or Infect, and that is boring as shit to me.
Yeah.
But I do like this, untap this to put a counter on this, to do this, to do this.
This is the engine thing.
Yeah, really complicated bits and bobs of stuff that I can just assemble to make something good. And Tornos is not the spiritual successor to Atraxa. I don't think that's the right way of wording it. I think Tornos used the broken down bits of bone and flesh that Atraxa left.
You know what?
And made something new out of it.
I think maybe Tornos is the phoenix of Atraxa.
Yeah, completely.
I think Tornos grew from the ashes of Atraxa, but Atraxa had to die for Tornos to be born from that.
And
so
I had
look,
to learn that I didn't want to do it like that. I wanted to do it like this.
Yeah, so maybe if that's what you consider reincarnation, then maybe the deck was reincarnated. But I think I agree with you that really that deck as it existed did die.
Yes.
And it is gone.
R.I.P.
Well, look, all decks must eventually die, but that does not have to be the end. If you take a really honest look at why a deck didn't work for you, you may be able to reincarnate your ideas into a new shiny vessel. And if not, hey, that's one less deck you have to worry about and a bunch of cards for your next big project. So, Space Commanders, command received.
Yeah, good.
Nice.
I'm not sure. I've been talking a bit about it on the Discord recently. I'm about to cull even more decks and brew new
Yuriko
ones.
just left, as we discovered. Yep.
Mainly because a couple of people in my play group have built brand new decks. Like one of our good friends, Abe, has just built this Megatron deck, which I helped him with.
Yep.
And I had so much fun helping him brew that.
Yeah, you got the deck building bug back.
I've got my itch and I'm excited. This episode felt good to me because it's like, I can just disassemble decks and use those cards to make something good.
Yeah,
I'm keen as hell. It's exciting.
It's good to be excited by the death of a deck. We often get hung up on the feelings of like, I loved the memories of this deck.
I worked so hard to build it.
But the 98% of the time, the excitement outweighs the disappointment, I think. So to the listeners, do you feel commanded? What do you think of our dead decks? And are there any decks of yours that might now be reborn in the near future?
Yeah, talk to us on all the social media platforms, being Instagram and Twitter, being the only ones that matter, at Get Commanded. But the best place to talk to us really is in our Twitch chat, where we go live every single Monday night, 7 p.m, twitch.tv/getcommanded. You can talk with us and other members of our awesome community and watch us play games and watch us play all the decks that we spoke about that are the phoenixes that rise from the
Yeah,
ashes.
exactly. You can see whatever that next deck that James is inevitably going to brew will look like.
And the
I'm
next
keen for that.
20 Twitch streams will be just playing that.
Yeah.
You and Gandalf, basically.
I wasn't going to say it.
I was.
The absolute best way to support the Get Commanded podcast is actually over on Patreon. We'd be lost without our patrons. They are the reason that so much of the things that we do are possible. So we'd like to thank our patrons Fuzzy, Bottomless Potamus, Dyer, Dylan Norg, Bertie, and Crazy Logic.
A new initiate.
And we'd also like to make a very special shout out to Flitcher Cutting.
From
Flitcher
New
Cutting
Zealand
and
or
Wizard
from
Down
South
Under.
Africa.
We'd like to have a special shout out to Flitcher Cutting and Wizard Down Under who support us in the Space Commander tier. Yeah. You're the best. I think I'm actually in South Africa now.
I think it's South Africa.
It's Mork.
Mork.
Fletcher Cutting.
And Mork.
It's cut.
Yeah,
it's Fletcher Cutting, you know.
We play rugby.
Yeah, we're playing rugby. We're the best.
Rugby.
We're the best in the world.
Yeah.
Such a weird accent. Anyway.
I'm sorry for any
let's
South
stop.
Africans.
Another nationality eliminated from our listener base.
The French, the South Africans, never listening to Get Commanded.
Nice.
Although the boys at Palms Off Gaming listen to this podcast,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if you've been following their Instagram recently. They've been playing some Commander in their office. We have properly infected them with the Commander bug.
Good.
These guys make awesome sleeves, deck boxes, and binders. You can check it all out at palmsoffgaming.com.au/hashtag Get Commanded. Get a cheeky 10% off your purchase and support us at the same time. But keep your eye on Palms Off. I've been hanging out with them, talking to a lot of them in the DMs.
Some exciting stuff on the horizon, specifically for us over here at Get Commanded and for all of you. So we will keep you in the loop, but you're going to want to check them out. So it's palmsoffgaming.com.au/hashtag Get Commanded.
Sweet. All right, that's all the magic stuff.
Yep.
We are planes walking out of here to somewhere else. Walt, what have you been up to?
I was at a party last night.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Social.
I know. I finally got a social life after finishing my plays.
For the past 4 months,
took a full break from socializing, but socializing with people who I was doing a show with, I guess.
Yeah.
But I went to a party last night that was a celebration of the winter solstice.
Oh, so
which
was
was
this like
just
a
the other
Celtic
day.
pagan ritual that you
it's-
were a part of?
The person who was hosting it is a good friend of mine who I used to live with, who is her family's from Norway. So I guess maybe it's got some significance for her there. But it's I didn't realize it's the 4th year in a row that she's run it. I think I've been to the last 3. Just very cute. There's no particular theme. We don't like burn anything or like
There's
it's
no
not
sacrifice.
not that I'm aware of, but it's just like a
Not
nice.
that you're aware of. There were some rooms that I wasn't allowed into.
Look, I was a bit late, so anything could have happened before I got there. And Electra was there before I was, so if she was there.
Thankfully, she didn't get sacrificed.
No, not tonight. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, winter solstice, it happened. And it was just like a nice way to mark the fact that we're theoretically halfway through winter, I guess. Or some people consider the solstice the beginning of winter, which is probably more accurate.
To be honest,
especially in Melbourne, it is freezing cold. It was 1 degree when James came over this morning to record for this.
Still have a beanie on this morning.
Yeah, it is very cold.
I'm also just hearing the winter solstice is exciting because I haven't been up to the mountain to snowboard this year yet. But I'm locking in some time with, funnily enough, David, who's Cooley, the CDH
in the
server.
CDH server.
Yeah, gonna get up the mountain with him, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, winter is here.
Yeah, very firmly here in Melbourne. I'm sure this would be weird for all of you in America who probably got
boiling hot days coming on.
95 degree weather. I'm gonna guess that's hot
Fahrenheit.
over there. I know that 100 is like the big one. It's like, oh my god, it's over 100 today.
I think if it's like in the 90s, it's quite hot.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's 100, then water will boil.
That's Celsius.
I know.
You were being facetious. It was a bit.
I was being facetious.
Oh, so funny.
Just for one time. Thank you.
Should we end the podcast?
Yeah. So winter solstice and shortest day of the year and shortest planeswalk? I don't know. We'll
just
see.
a party for no rhyme or reason.
No,
it's just fun time.
It's a party. You're invited, and we'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Command.
Goodbye, Commander players.
Bye.